Hi, and welcome to another edition of the Digital Arts Show. I'm Jim Sirianni, your host, and this show is part of the Digital Arts Festival that is produced by Center Stage Theater in Santa Barbara, California. The Digital Arts Festival shows stream nightly, every night at 7 p.m., and you can find more on the Center Stage website, centerstagetheater.org, and click on the blog tab. The purpose of the Digital Arts Festival is to have a way for artists and performers to share their work of all kinds, whether it be theater or dance or what have you. But because of the shutdown, many artists and performers suddenly found themselves with no way to perform or to show their work. And unfortunately, in some cases, the work that these artists and performers have created may never be seen by the public. And so in an effort to find a workaround, if you will, the Digital Arts Festival was created by Center Stage to help artists and performers connect with their audiences in a virtual setting. And as I mentioned, we'll have dance, theater, music, film, visual arts, poetry, storytelling, and much more. And again, you can learn more on the Center Stage website, centerstagetheater.org, and click on the blog tab. Today's guest is Risa Brainin. Risa Brainin is a professor, freelance director, and founder and artistic director of the groundbreaking new play development program, Launchpad, at the University of California here in Santa Barbara. Since creating Launchpad, Brainin has developed and directed many new works with the playwright in residence. Launchpad was featured in American Theater magazine for its innovation and contribution to new play development. Celebrating 15 years now, Launchpad is a creative laboratory for professional playwrights, UCSB theater students and faculty, and guest artists. And it's considered collaboration and experimentation at its finest. And we'll learn more about Risa and Launchpad on today's show. Welcome to the show, Risa Brainin. It's so good to have you here.
Thank you, Jim. It's wonderful to be here.
It's great to see you again. I know I interviewed you back in the day on my radio program.
Yes,
Doing the Zoom thing. It's a whole new world, isn't it?
it absolutely is, and we're trying to get super comfortable with it, aren't we?
Yes, exactly. So can you tell us a little bit about your background, how you got to where you are today at UCSB?
Wow. Okay. It's a
Let's start at
lot
the
of
very
years.
beginning.
I'll be brief. I'm going to give you the Reader's Digest version of this whole thing. Um, but basically, I started out as an actor. I went to Carnegie Mellon for acting, but I always was interested in directing. I was very fortunate to have some teaching experience as a young person. Actually, while I was at Carnegie Mellon, there was something called the pre-college program that was offered in the summer, which I actually took as a high school student. And then fast forward to between, I think it's between my junior and senior year, I was invited to teach in that program. And that was where I started to learn, about what it was to actually try to teach what you do. But anyway, graduated from Carnegie Mellon, moved to New York with all my classmates. We are all gonna, make it as actors in New York. And I was working in New York. I was head more toward directing. And I was, my friends would ask me to direct things for them. And I was directing for an arts camp in the Adirondacks in the summers and stuff. And then I just, on a whim, I moved to Minneapolis. I had actually gone there my senior year. A professor had said, I think you'd like that town. Went to Minneapolis, really liked it. And so 3 years later, I just, on a whim, I was like, I'm moving to Minneapolis. And all my friends thought I was crazy. They said, you're giving up. You're acting. But no, there's something drawing me there. I had a couple friends and went to Minneapolis, started a theater company there called Brainstorm Productions, and started doing more teaching, more directing. And then I was very fortunate to land an opportunity at the Guthrie Theater called resident director, where I consider that kind of my MFA in directing. And that opened up many, many doors for me. I then became the associate artistic director at Indiana Repertory Theater and Kansas City Repertory Theater. And then I went to Shakespeare Santa Cruz to become the artistic director there for an interim position. And then Irwin Apple called me and he said, we have a job at UCSB and I think you should apply. And he and I had worked together in Indiana. I hired him to be in Tally's Folly. and directed him in that play in 1998. Um,
Oh,
and
wow.
so that was it. So he called me and he said, you should check it out. I applied, I came down, I interviewed, I love the people. And I went, well, this is a left turn for me, but why not? And I took it, and really it's been an amazing, Jim has been an amazing 16 years here at
Oh, nice.
UCSB.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's wonderful. That's great. And we're so lucky to have you here in Santa Barbara at UCSB.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
yes. So tell us a little bit about Launchpad and how it began.
Yeah, so here I got the job, and I was really coming from the professional theater world, and I was doing a lot of Shakespeare because I was running Shakespeare Santa Cruz, and I was getting to direct a lot of Shakespeare, and part of the job here was direct one play a year, and you could choose what that is. So I proposed. Well, I was thinking about what how could I do that would be research, in my field, and also something that I really needed to learn more about, which was living writers. I had been doing new work, but I would say I was doing more classical work than new work. So I reached out to my friend Liz Engelman, who's one of the great dramaturgs in this country, and I said I would like to do either a new play or a play that's been done before, but the writer still wants to work on it. And the impulse really came out of talking to writers who said, we get trapped in this reading and workshop cycle, and we might do like 10 readings of the play, but it's really to get a production. And then if we do get a production, there's so much pressure on the production that you've got to like deliver, and then we can't get the second production. So there was sort of like this gap that I saw. And I thought, well, maybe what we could do here at a university, because the New York Times is not coming, um, maybe we could create something that would give the opportunity for the writer to see the work fully produced, scenery, costumes, lighting, sound, music, everything, with professional actors and student actors, and a mix of people, which I always thought that was the most valuable way to learn. Um, for both parties, because if you've got a young person and an experienced person together, they're going to learn from each other. So anyway, long story trying to make it short was that I thought we could do this thing, and we later called it a preview production, which we call it now, but for many years I didn't know what to call it, but that's what it really is. The show stays in previews. It never has an opening night. If the writer wants to write the whole time, they can make changes if they want to, and it gives that opportunity as a safety net. But they're seeing it in 3D, so they're not imagining what would it be like if there was a set. No, they see a set. You
Right.
know, so that was the impulse behind starting it, and it's been just an amazing 15 years. This year's our 15th year, and we're doing this big project called Alone Together, which is I commissioned 24 of those writers who've worked with us over the years to write monologues and scenes that are meant to be performed on Zoom. And they wrote 40 pieces. We've got 23 directors, including our student directors, and we're going to have over 100 roles for actors. And we'll be working with our students, and maybe some people in the community are going to be guests. And we're going to do this thing on June 6th, and it's going to be insane. And we're going to do it on Zoom, and it's going to be super fun. But
Oh my gosh. Yes,
so
and I was going to ask you about that. So tell us about that project then. It's called Alone Together.
yeah, so that was the prompt. Now I really have to give credit to Annie Torsiglieri, because when everything was shut down and our chancellor said, you all need to, everything needs to go online. We were actually about to start rehearsal for a play called Fortunes by Dan Castellaneta and Deb LaCosta. And we were supposed to start rehearsal that night. And we all, I called Erwin and I said, we got the email from the chancellor, and I said, I don't think I should start this project. It was a 3-day thing, but it was like we had to bring people together to do it. And he and I agreed that I should cancel. So we canceled. And then when everything shut down, we started to think about how are we gonna teach? How are we gonna do project? What are we gonna do? And Annie had come up with it. She said to me, I think we should do some commissioning of writers, and this idea of getting them to write things that are meant to be performed on Zoom. So rather than us pretending that, this is, guess what, everybody, it's Streetcar Named Desire, but pretend that everybody's in the same room when they're in, 12 in a room. What if
Right.
we actually have material that is written for this? In the meantime, Deb and Dan, I thought, well, okay, we're going to take some leaps here. What if we do a Zoom reading? What if we try doing this on Zoom, like as a precursor to everything else that might be happening in the spring quarter? And so I called them. I said, "You want to do this?" They said, "Absolutely." So first week of spring quarter, we immediately went into this 3-day workshop, and we had the reading. It was really fun. It really kind of worked. So that made me more confident in the bigger project, the Alone Together project. And Annie, we sort of concocted it together, but I love the idea as sort of a celebration of our 15 years of Launchpad to reach out to any writer who's worked with us, either in preview production or the Launchpad Summer Reading Series, which we do, or what we're now calling these pop-up, Launchpad pop-ups. I invited everyone. I said, would you like to contribute to this? And there were maybe 32 people and 24 of them said yes. So
Oh,
that
wow.
was, yeah,
That's
really cool. And
great.
Jim, the pieces are beautiful. There's some of them are really funny and some of them are heartbreaking and some just deal right with COVID 100%. Others are really not about that. But I think every writer, when they're writing from their isolation, first off, they were excited to have a project to do that was, related and that they could use what they're going through. Um, and I think some beautiful things came out of people. So we're just in the process now of the directors in my class got to pick their pieces, and now we have the other directors. There's 23 directors in all, and people are reading the material now, choosing what they're interested in working on, and then Annie and I have a giant spreadsheet of all the plays, all the roles, and then we'll be plugging in actors as we do auditions and everything. And it's going to be this crazy. It's like doing a massive repertory of plays.
Wow. That's amazing. And so how many plays altogether?
39.
39?
39. Yeah.
Wow. And then what an amazing experiment and an experience for the students and for the directors and for all of you. What in such an unprecedented time that we're in here with with
Yeah.
quarantine. That's a great what a great experience for everybody to participate in. By the way, those of you who are watching, if you'd like to learn more about Risa, her website is risabrainin.com. That's risabrainin.com. And to learn more about Launchpad, their website is launchpad.theaterdance.ucsb.edu. And I believe these links will be on the blog, on the Center Stage blog, on the Digital Arts Festival page, as well as this interview that you're watching right now. So Risa, tell me, what attracts you particularly to the development of new plays?
Well, I think there's nothing. I'm really into collaboration. Collaboration is really my thing. Whether I'm working on a new play or a classic play, I love the collaboration that happens. Particularly first with designers and a director as you're kind of creating the point of view, and when you throw a writer into that world, it is just, there's nothing more exciting than, because what we try to do, if I'm working on Shakespeare, or I'm working on Chekhov, or I'm working on, I just did Murder on the Orient Express. Well, if you're working on Shakespeare, you can't ask the playwright anything, right?
Right.
If you're working on Murder on the Orient Express, you can, reach out to the writer and say, hey, Ken, which I was able, why did you write this or that? But that play's been done, 5 different times. I mean, he's not very interested in working on it anymore. It's done. But when you're working on a new play, you have that opportunity to really try to get inside the head of the writer. Because that's what I feel my job is as a director anyway, no matter what I do. With Shakespeare, you've got 400 years of writing about it, criticism and things that you can read and try to understand. But with a new play, you just turn to the writer and say, what were what do you think the character is trying to say there? But what's interesting about working with the writers, they don't have all the answers about their own work. So they love the collaboration also with the director and the designers and the actors, because that fills up what was in their imagination. And of course, if you have a different director and different team, it's going to be different production. But with these first time, if I'm doing a world premiere or preview production, my goal is to try and get as close to what the writer intended as possible. Um,
Gotcha.
and so I just love that. I love being able to have the writer there in the room.
Right, right. And again, as you're watching the interview today, if you want to learn more about Launchpad, the website is launchpad.theaterdance.ucsb.edu. So tell us about your creative process as a director. How do you approach a new script before the rehearsal process even begins?
Right. So the first thing I do is, I'll read it a number of times, and I have a series of things that I do in terms of text analysis and getting what I call burrowing into the text. And there's things that, it's simple things like doing a scene breakdown. There's some of the technical things that one can do just to get your mind really focused. I work on, and I teach this in my directing class as well. I write down, it's a very long process, takes many hours, but I'll write down for each character what the playwright says about the character, what the character says about him or herself, what the other character says about the character. And you'll have these long, I think I might have an example here I can pull and show you if I find a pad somewhere down here. Oh, no, I don't know where it is. But, here it is. Okay, here's an example. So I'm working right now on Frankenstein. And, here's an example of my pad with all my tabs. And then
Oh,
every
okay.
tab, let's say here's the character of Percy Shelley, so I'll write down all my quotes about Percy Shelley from the script. And then I'll come up with a list of adjectives and things to describe. So this is just a way for me to get really deeply into the text. And then that's before I meet with my designers. And then when I meet with the designers for the first time, we always start by reading the play aloud together, which I love. And none of us are actors, really. I mean, although probably all of us have acting backgrounds somewhere,
Right.
but we're reading it just to hear it aloud. And then we really spend, a day and a half going, why this play at this time for this audience? I mean,
Gotcha.
because if you can't answer those questions, then you probably shouldn't do the play.
Right, right.
And so I love that kind of process. I really learned that from my mentor, Garland Wright, who was the artistic director of the Guthrie. He really taught me in a way how to dig deeply into a play with a design team. And we don't, in that first meeting, we don't talk about like, well, we need a door upstage right, or we don't talk about anything practical. We really just talk about the concept, of why this play at this time for this audience. And then that kind of gives everybody the same point. If you walk out of that meeting, everyone knows why we're doing it. And then at the next meeting, we're coming back together and we're looking at everybody's ideas. I should also say in that first meeting, we look at research, we share images, but not concrete things, more about, well, the play made me feel this way, or, this reminds me of the play for some reason, things
Right.
like that. And so that's kind of how the journey begins for me.
And that starts probably how far before auditions do you start working on a show?
It depends when you get hired, Sometimes, like this show Frankenstein, which is supposed to open in Indiana Rep in September, although, everybody's on hold at the moment. I got hired for this in December or January, and then we started working on it maybe a couple of months ago. And we're kind of working on it slowly over time. And what's kind of nice about the whole Zoom world is that we just have regular weekly meetings now on Zoom to move our process forward. It's actually usually what happens is the theater will fly the whole team together for a first meeting, and then and then I always ask for a second meeting, so we'll get another opportunity for us to be in person. Now this process, we haven't been in person at all. So
Oh, wow.
we're all doing it. But I've always loved Zoom actually as a way to keep the communication going between in-person meetings. So I'm comfortable with that.
Right.
Um, yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, you've touched on this a little bit before, but how has the stay-at-home order impacted your work? I'm sure directing in this environment is really different, a very different process, I'm sure. But how is that? How are you dealing with the whole process?
Yeah, well, it's completely changed my life. I mean, I was supposed to be in April, I was supposed to be in 5 different cities for different meetings and auditions and different things that projects that were coming down for next year, and everything got obviously canceled. Um, and all of those productions, there's 5 different plays I'm working on that are in different states of postponement.
Oh, yeah,
um, you know, that part's been really hard, you know, but
yeah,
I mean, who isn't dealing with that? I mean, everybody's dealing with the same thing. I
right.
think adapting to the online teaching has been challenging. I read this article about Zoom, which talks about how exhausting it is to actually communicate on Zoom because you're not really having eye contact. You can't really, like you and I connect. I can see your eyes, you can see my eyes,
Right.
but we're not sparking off each other eye to eye.
Yeah.
So it's a little harder to read people. And if you're in a classroom situation, you've got everybody, in the gallery view. Um, it's kind of hard to know what's going on with someone, and when you're not right there with them. So there's
Right.
that aspect. And then I think the other aspect is that theater is all about liveness.
Yeah.
And, so it's sort of like, how do you take the liveness out of theater?
I don't,
Well, what is theater when it's, I mean, this is so cool because Zoom, I think, is what we have right now.
right.
And everyone across the country is trying all kinds of things. And it's so inspiring to see the work that's coming out of, I mean, theaters are keeping, they're putting things online, of course, but they're also having all kinds of Zoom things like this that are a way to keep the audience engaged, a way to keep the artists engaged, a way to keep the art moving forward. It's pretty amazing what people are doing.
It is, yeah, and I agree with you. The challenges are there's a lot of challenges, but it's even for me for right now. I'm looking at my notes on one page, and then
Right.
clicking back over to the screen, and and then looking at the camera and looking, but trying to look at you, and it's like, where do you look?
Yeah. Yeah.
It is challenging, but then I applaud you and Launchpad for creating the Zoom piece that you're going to do later in June. Alone Together, is that the title of
Yes,
it?
it is. Yeah.
That's great, and it's so innovative, and trying to you know make some lemonade out of the lemons, with this whole situation.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
and then how is it though for you directing the? Although I guess you haven't started doing that part yet, have you, on Zoom directing the
Only
actors?
the fortunes reading, and boy, that was what a learning curve that was.
I bet.
Um, and then now that my students are working, right now they're working on monologues from um, Seagull and Stupid Fucking Bird. And so they're doing both of them, and tomorrow's their midterm. And what I think everyone is learning is you have this little rectangle to tell your story. And so you've got to think about every single element that's in that. You've got to think about the composition of that rectangle. You've got to think about, what's the background? What is the actor wearing? How can you use and you're also dealing with a limited background because they're wherever they are. And
Right.
there's a couple fun things that my directing students are doing. One of the bird monologues takes place in a kitchen. And so that actor is, in their kitchen at home,
Right.
on Zoom, doing the monologue. So, and one thing I learned from the Fortunes reading was that now that was really different because that was trying to, everybody's in one environment, but we had, how many actors were in that? 7 actors or something. So then it was like, okay, if they're supposed to be in the same environment, but they're not, how do you make that happen? And one fun thing we found was how you handle props. So, for example, one character threw an onion to another character that's in script. So both actors had onions,
Oh,
and the first actor, Michael Bernard, I think it was in the first one, he tossed the onion, and the other actor, pretended like he caught it, and it really all of a sudden the squares sort of felt like they were one.
oh,
Um,
neat. What
yeah,
a fun experiment, though. What a fun
yeah, fun.
experience, trying to, playing with the whole, like you're saying, the rectangle and the whole Zoom thing,
Yeah,
and being creative in a way that you normally wouldn't be if it were on stage. But
yeah.
that's amazing.
Also,
Go ahead.
I was just going to say the performance itself, because when we were doing them the other day, the monologue, some actors were acting as though they're on the stage. It's like, no, how do you make use of the fact that the camera is right there? You don't have to, like make it that big. You can really speak right to the camera and have the character you're talking to be so intimate with you, you know?
Right, right. Yeah, it's so in other words, then you have acting students who are, theater majors who are also now becoming film majors all of a sudden.
Right, it is, and yet it is live. I mean, I've been thinking about Annie and I've been talking about this a lot in terms of the performance in June. Um, we were hoping to do it all in one day, but it's a lot of material. So we're going, where people gonna and we'll have breaks, but should we try and do kind of a marathon thing where it's like, spend an hour and 15 minutes, everybody go away for half an hour, come back for another hour and 15 minutes, go away and have lunch, come back, because it's probably gonna be close to 5 hours of material that we've
Oh,
got,
wow.
39 little pieces. Um, and then is the best when we did Fortunes, what was great was everybody came. So we had about 80 people show up, and everybody had their cameras on. And then I spoke to everyone and said, welcome and blah, blah, blah. This is a grand experiment. Don't know how it's going to go. And then I had to tell them how to turn their cameras to a setting so that they would disappear, which I think Zoom has fixed. So I don't have to say that. And anyway, everybody did that. And then at the end, they came back for a discussion. So everybody turned on their cameras, or people, not everybody, but if you wanted to, you could. And lots of people popped in and gave their comments. So one question is, do we want to do it just like that? And I think the cool thing about that is you're really there. You're really there, as opposed to a webinar where you are really there, but you're watching it. You don't,
Right,
and yet you can't have it be too interactive, because if everyone leaves their mics open, if the audience leaves their mics open, anything can float through. Anything that happens in their little space is going to
right,
come right in. So we're trying to figure out, how do we do this so that the audience, we can have some reactions, because it's hard to do plays without any reactions,
right.
uh, and yet not disrupt the performance. Okay, Jim, what do you think? What should we do?
I don't know. It's amazing you mentioned that because recently I was watching Saturday Night Live. Actually, did Saturday Night Live at home, and they actually had people with their mics on reacting, like some of the cast members, I guess. Particularly when they did the weekend update, they had people with their mics on reacting and laughing, so that
Uh-huh.
the performers would know how to, pause for laughter and all that stuff. So
Yes.
it is challenging. It's because you kind of have to
Yes.
make the decision: do we let the audience, keep their mics on, or do we not, because of the interference? There's a lot of challenges there, and I wish we could go on chatting some more, but unfortunately we're just about out of time.
Okay.
But before we go, I just want to make sure everyone has your information. You can find out more about Risa Brainin at her website, risabrainin.com. That's RISABRAININ.com. And for Launchpad, you can check out their website, launchpad.theaterdance.ucsb.edu. And to learn more about Center Stage, centerstagetheater.org. Again, that's centerstagetheater.org. And if you're curious about what I do, you can find me on social media as well, Jim on the Air on Facebook, at Jim on the Air on Instagram. And then my podcast is on Spotify and Anchor.fm, Jim on the Air as well. And I just want to thank you, Risa, for joining us today and taking time out of your day. And thank everybody for joining us. And thanks for watching.
Thank you, Jim. Take good care.
You
Stay
too. Bye.
safe.
You too. Stay safe, stay healthy, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.